3 brave subscribers sent me the opening pages of their fantasy novels, and I'm going to rank them from the one I think needs the most work to the one that's close to query ready. I'll evaluate these 3 manuscripts the same way that I reviewed queries when I worked at a top literary agency, as if these pages just landed in my inbox cold and I had just a few minutes to determine if I wanted to keep reading. One of the things you all have been enjoying most about this critique series is getting to see real manuscripts in various stages of progress, so I thought it would be great to show you what those different stages actually look like. Hopefully these critiques help you determine if your manuscript still needs some TLC or if it's close to publishable. It goes without saying that all of these are my personal reads and my personal opinions. And ultimately, all 3 of these stories have great potential. So let's start with the first manuscript, which is dark epic fantasy. Wake? Where am I? What am I? Warm, floating in liquid. Muffled sounds penetrate the warm liquid around me. Reaching out, something hard is holding me in. Something is urging me to break out. Cracking sounds all around me, shadows moving. A loud sound blasts at me. Reaching out and pushing, my claw penetrates the hard thing. The liquid around me gushes out. I retracted my claw. A blinding light hit my eyes. I froze, stunned by the light, and did it again. The hard thing gives way, pushing it out of the way. Trying to climb out, my entire world shifts and falls. Something cold, soft, and scratchy surrounded and stuck to me, and I landed in it. Warmth moves up my body and makes a noise that makes me relax. It is from the thing licking me, turning my head. A black and purple face is smiling down at me. Out of the corner of my eye, I catch more movement. Turning to look at another face, it is silver. Deva. Hello, my little Asani. Salem. Wow, my first daughter. What more could a father want? Asani. Someone else is there. They are green, much smaller than the other 2. Pipo. Mom, but I don't want any siblings. Let us eat her. You say dragons taste good, especially young ones. At least I have eliminated all but one, and I would have to agree with you. Salem. Pipo, I will have none of that. We do not eat other dragons. You disgust me. You have too much of your mother in you. 50 years later. Okay, the first thing I noticed about this story is that we're following a disoriented first-person narrator. The first lines are a series of questions. The narrator doesn't know where they are or what they are, and they're describing their physical sensations in this hazy way. I've read many novels that open with this type of disorientation, so that approach is not a problem in and of itself. It does immediately establish tension and mystery, which is exactly what you want to do on the first page. But there are some issues with the execution that are preventing this scene from landing. Looking at the prose, there are several grammatical errors that pulled me out of the moment and were distracting. The writer is using a lot of descriptive and atmospheric language, but the sentences are stacking up in a way that is difficult to follow. There are a bunch of fragments and some dangling modifiers. For instance, look at the line, reaching out, something hard is holding me in. The writer seems to be trying to describe the narrator reaching out, but technically, the way this sentence is worded is saying that something hard is reaching out, which doesn't make sense. There's another dangling modifier in the line, trying to climb out, my entire world shifts and falls. That is technically saying that the entire world is trying to climb out. There are also some verb tense slips. The passage is largely written in present tense, but the writer slips into past tense in a couple of places, including the line, I retracted my claw. And then a little bit later, something cold, soft, and scratchy surrounded and stuck to me and I landed in it. Those sentences are in past tense, which is jarring. There are also some significant formatting issues. The bulk of the text is in this one big paragraph when it would be much more readable if broken up into 2 to 3 paragraphs. But more importantly, once we get into the dialogue, the prose is formatted more like a screenplay than a novel. The speakers are labeled with the speaker's name on one line, then a colon, and then the quote. In a novel, we should have a sense of what's going on in the scene as the characters are talking to one another. But because we get no choreography in this dialogue section, I'm genuinely confused as to how the characters are positioned in the scene. Where is Deva in relation to the narrator? She seems to pop out of nowhere. Same goes for the next characters that are introduced, Salem and Pipo. And then this Asani line is confusing because they seem to be our narrator, but then are given a header with a colon like the other characters who are speaking. Once the other voices enter the scene, we almost entirely lose sight of our first-person narrator. We can't grasp what exactly they're seeing and how they're reacting to what's being said. It also seems that the narrator has just been born, so then how would they know the other characters' names? All of these grammatical and formatting issues are contributing to the disorienting quality of this scene, but in a distracting way. Then, the header 50 years later seems to indicate this entire first scene was really a flashback snippet. So perhaps this author should reframe this entire scene as a prologue rather than having a big time jump in the middle of chapter 1. My honest opinion is that this manuscript needs some significant work before it's ready to query. There's certainly an interesting setup here, but the grammatical and formatting issues need to be ironed out, and the dialogue needs to be filtered through our first-person narrator for the scene to make sense. I also wonder whether this scene should be repositioned as a prologue or if it's necessary at all, given that the bulk of the story seems to happen 50 years later. Every single one of these problems is fixable in revision though, so I definitely encourage this writer to keep working on it. Now let's look at the second manuscript, which is adult fantasy. Thank you for joining us for another exciting bout in the Godhood games. For any new viewers, the rules are simple. One-on-one combat, weapons allowed, a knockout's all you need, and killing is frowned upon, a female broadcaster said. Beside her was a male host, the two of them sitting comfy in a broadcasting booth in a coliseum. The seats were filled with screaming crowds waiting for the action to get underway, typical scenery for a fight related to the Godhood games. Today's fight is sure to draw some big numbers. We've got an up-and-coming rookie facing off against the crowd-pleaser, Pussycat Slayer, the male broadcaster said. It looks like our aforementioned newcomer, Anne Stan, is making her way out now. The cameras pan down to 18-year-old Anne, walking out anxiously to the roaring crowds. This wasn't her first time on such a stage, but she was more nervous than usual because of her opponent. Not only was he ranked higher than her, but his name was revolting, too. When did murdering cats become something to cheer for? Anne asked herself, her voice drowned out by the crowd. The ground she was walking on was shaped into a gigantic circle, the edges of which stood the seating for the audience. Anne walked to the middle of the arena and waited for her opponent. The seconds passed like minutes, due in part to the restless shouting from the crowd. But then those roars turned into high-pitched squeals as soon as Anne's opponent walked through the tunnel and into view. He was blond, with a pair of jeans and no shirt, with a silver sword resting against his bare shoulder. His abs and other stomach muscles stood out and drove his plethora of female fans wild. New to Anne but familiar to regular viewers, chants began to break out from the women in the crowd. "Slay me, slay me, slay me," they chanted. I don't get it. I thought his gimmick was killing cats? Why are all of these women screaming? Anne trailed off as she considered the stage name of her opponent. And then the true meaning of his name hit her like a truck. She felt weak in the knees before she fell forward on them. I knew humanity was in a dark place, but I never realized men were so disgusting. This manuscript has a lot going for it, but it also has a few noticeable mistakes that are holding it back. And in my experience, this is the exact stage that most manuscripts are at. Let's start with what's working. We open in a high-stakes scene. We're about to witness the Godhood games. We're in a coliseum with a roaring crowd and two opponents about to battle each other. This author has not made the common mistake of opening with a boring, static, reflective scene. There is momentum right away. The other thing I really like about this manuscript is that we get both external and internal conflict in this first scene, which makes it feel robust and layered. Not only do we anticipate the action of the fight, but we also get a glimpse into Anne's internal conflict as she reflects on her disgust for her opponent. So there's a lot to like here. But let's diagnose the problems. The opening line is detached dialogue from a broadcaster, and we spend the first 4 paragraphs seemingly in that broadcast booth, hovering over the action. We're hearing the announcers and seeing the scene from a bird's eye perspective, but this type of disembodied opening creates distance. Rather, we want to feel immediately connected to a character. I know this author isn't deliberately writing omniscient POV because we do eventually land inside Anne's head with the line, "This wasn't her first time on such a stage, but she was more nervous than usual because of her opponent." That's the moment the POV clicks into place and the narrative starts to flow. But it happens too late. This scene would be so much more dynamic and immersive if we were in Anne's head from the very first line. Let's see her observe the spectacle of the scene and the crowd's wild roars. The scene will feel so much more immediate if we're placed inside her mind and body from the start. It's worth looking at your very first page and making sure that your POV is clear and consistent right from the jump, because POV issues are very easy to spot and will be noticeable on your first page, even if they get sorted out in subsequent chapters. The other big issue I noticed is the way Anne's internal thoughts are formatted. When did murdering cats become something to cheer for? And I don't get it. I thought his gimmick was killing cats. Why are all these women screaming? I knew humanity was in a dark place, but I never realized men were so disgusting. It looks awkward on the page to have Anne talk to herself aloud. When you're writing in close third person, it's much cleaner and smoother to drop the quotation marks and weave the character's internal thoughts into the narration itself. Here's how a revised version of that last passage could read. She didn't get it. Wasn't his gimmick killing cats? Why are all of these women screaming? Anne considered the stage name of her opponent, and then the true meaning of his name hit her like a truck. She felt weak in the knees before she fell forward on them. She knew humanity was in a dark place, but never realized men were so disgusting. Do you see how much smoother that flows? Reserve quotation marks only for the lines that really need to be spoken aloud, not your POV character's internal thoughts. Beyond those two issues, I was genuinely intrigued to see how the Godhood games would play out. If the author tightens up the POV, this manuscript definitely has potential. By the way, if you suspect your manuscript needs a professional eye to spot the issues you can't quite see for yourself, that's exactly what my editing team does. I've built a team of the best-in-class developmental editors who've worked at the world's biggest publishing houses and top literary agencies, and we'd love to help you elevate your story. You can submit an inquiry through my website, linked down below. Now, here is the manuscript I got most excited about, which is also adult fantasy. On the night of her expulsion, Liv glared at the empty seat beside her and wondered how suspicious it would look if tomorrow Nico turned up dead. Some people would say that murder was an overreaction, but those people hadn't spent the last 2 months forced into an ill-conceived partnership with the human equivalent of barbed wire. Hours wasted forging his homework, breaking up fights, and begging him to go to class. Liv had reached her limit. Unfortunately, so had the school. Miss Baker? The sound of her name jolted her back, and she turned to find 8 sets of eyes on her. Warmth rose to her cheeks. Sorry, can you repeat that? Lined up shoulder to tweed shoulder, the admin officials sat behind their table like the back rank of a collegiate-themed chessboard. In the queen's position, Temple Ryden steepled fingers beneath her chin. I asked if you have any idea where he is. The clock's reflection in the dusk-black windows read 8 minutes past the hour. A normal person could have been running late. 9 weeks into their indentured union, Liv knew that late was Nico's code for not coming, and with an inward cringe, she forced out the admission. I don't know. This was the wrong answer. Nico was Liv's vices, which in the school's eyes meant he was her problem. Never mind that he'd been through 4 Aegis before her, with the last pairing so unbalanced that his drift had nearly killed someone. By those metrics, Liv was doing fairly well. Miss Ryden let out a labored breath. Well, perhaps we should proceed? A murmur of agreement echoed down the table, and the woman flipped open her dossier. Pressing a finger to the bridge of her silver-framed glasses, she shook her head. I'm afraid I'm going to have to address this to you, Olivia, seeing as your vices is nowhere to be found. When she looked up, Liv had to strain to keep her face passive. She wasn't proud of the reflexive antagonism. A lot of people were involved in appointing Miss Ryden as West Nye College's Wicca liaison, and Liv would have bet what little money she had that none of them were witches. Still, with no one else to direct it at, her resent had to go somewhere. As you know, Ryden went on, West Nye prides itself on its scholars, thus issues arise when those students fail to live up to our expectations. And how exactly have I done that? Miss Ryden didn't smile as she picked up a sheet from the table and began to read. 12 missed lectures, 3 failed exams, 4 complaints of vulgar language, a verbal threat against a professor, a physical altercation with a varsity athlete at a school-sanctioned event. Liv made a face. Everyone knew Trevor Manning was an asshole. The writing has a palpable voice that drew me right in. We meet the protagonist Liv in a moment of conflict. She's about to be expelled. And her partner Nico is the problem. We get this line about Nico being the human equivalent of barbed wire, which I love. It showcases Liv's sense of humor while characterizing her relationship with Nico. The next thing this author does really well is world building. We get 2 world-specific terms on the first page, Vices and Aegis, but they're not distracting. A lot of fantasy writers would either throw out these terms with no explanation whatsoever, or they would give us paragraphs upon paragraphs of explanation and definition. But this author does neither. They give us just enough context to understand that Nico and Liv are in some kind of forced partnership and that previous pairings have ended badly. We don't have all the information about their arrangement or about how this school operates just yet, but we're given just enough context to feel grounded in the conflict. That is exactly how good world building should work. Now, I wouldn't be an editor if I didn't have some constructive notes, because no manuscript is perfect. But in this case, they wouldn't prevent me from reading more. I would like a smidge more context on what it means for Miss Ryden to be a Wicca liaison that was apparently appointed by non-witches. Just one more line there would help us better understand the social and political dynamics between witches and non-witches in this institution and the world at large. And the one thing I think would noticeably amplify the tension in this scene is having Liv reflect on where she thinks Nico might be right now. His absence has caused all of these problems for her. But does she think that he's just blowing her off and causing trouble somewhere? Or does she think that he's in danger? Or is he just sleeping in? Or is he with a girlfriend? Having that detail would tell us even more about their relationship and Liv's perception of Nico. But honestly, these are small notes on an otherwise strong opening. If these pages landed in my inbox when I was working at an agency, I would absolutely keep reading. Now, every single manuscript I read today has potential. So even if you suspect your manuscript still needs work, don't be discouraged. Once you know what agents look for, especially in those critical opening pages, you can absolutely make your manuscript stronger and increase your odds of success in this competitive querying landscape. On that note, if you're currently querying or planning to this year, make sure to pre-order my book, The Modern Guide to Querying Literary Agents. It contains absolutely everything I've learned over the years helping debut authors get traditionally published, along with never-before-seen insights from 4 million real queries. Thank you so much again to these 3 authors for being brave enough to share your pages. Putting your writing in front of an editor is scary on its own without a whole YouTube audience involved, so I really commend you, and you have just helped thousands of other writers diagnose problems in their own manuscripts. To make sure your pages give agents no choice but to read more, watch this video next, where I reveal the most common first page mistake I see across all genres using more examples from my subscribers. Thanks so much for watching and happy writing.